Hello and welcome to Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey, and we're going to talk all about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness today. I am joined by old friend, former co-host of this very show, Reena. We're back to dive into just how Raimi this movie gets. So join us. Let's get to it. Hi, Reena. Welcome back.
Hi, Mikey. How are you? Thanks. It's been a minute.
I'm doing all right. I avoided getting COVID despite it being in my house a couple weeks ago. So I'm all right. Although I just
Good
went
for
to a
you.
movie theater, so who knows? Yeah,
Well, I just went to Paris and I'm fine, so you should be okay.
I don't know. This person next to me was coughing and wasn't wearing a mask. So yeah, we're going to go over Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So let's just get into it. What'd you think about it?
Okay, so first of all, I took a really interesting chance, and I actually saw it at the Omni Theater at the Museum of Science. So that was wild. If you get motion sick, I don't recommend doing that because oh my god, it was like you were in the movie. It was crazy. So
Only for
yeah, that's
documentaries. Only for documentaries do I
only
ever
for
go there.
less. I mean, same. I didn't even know they showed movies there, but like I literally was in the multiverse, so that was a whole thing. But this is the most like Sam Raimi film that he's done in a long time. That's like
hmm
the best way I probably could describe it. I loved it. I thought it was fun. Like once my eyes adjusted to the fact that I was like, in the movie. But yeah, definitely a different tone than what we're used to seeing. From Marvel, and also argue with seeing around that you kind of need a lot more context to go into this one than some of the other films. But like I love Scarlet Witch, so I obviously enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's a good movie, not a great movie. Um, you definitely have to be okay with Sam Raimi, because it
Mm-hmm.
is this this feels less like an MCU movie and more like the 10th movie in Sam Raimi's Marvel universe. It's
Mm-hmm.
so different than what, like, not even just Doctor Strange, the first movie, and his other appearances in this. It is very much a Sam Raimi movie that happens to be in the MCU, similarly to how Taika put his stamp on Thor Ragnarok and now is going even further with Love and Thunder upcoming. So yeah, I think it's a good movie, but it's going to be divisive for some people because there are some things that I think they set up in the marketing that they would leave people hopeful for something. And they kind of rip that away real quick. So, which we'll
Yeah,
get into those
and I mean,
spoilers deeper into it. But
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
top level,
Definitely
I
not a
think
kids
it's
movie.
no, it's very much a PG-13 horror movie. But
Mm-hmm,
yeah, I think it's a solid movie that I think because I have the first movie a little bit lower in my rankings. I think the first movie is visually stunning and a more competent movie than this, but I just think this is more
mm-hmm,
fun. Like
mm-hmm,
this is just like get up and go camp for from start to finish. So,
mm-hmm.
if you can get into that from the original Spider-Man trilogy and Evil Dead, then this movie you should be cool with.
It's like kind of like the perfect marriage of like those two things because
Yeah.
there are definitely some heavy Evil Dead Army of Darkness vibes like
There
going
are
on, like
specific
not even
references,
subtly.
specific references to the Evil Dead in this, and we'll, but yeah, like, what about like how do you think the performances were? Because I think those were sort of like a little all over the place as well.
I mean, I thought Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange in this one was probably the most grounded that he's been in the role, like a little
For
still
for
a little
for
less
his for Prime Strange, you mean, not necessarily the
prime
other
for prime.
ones? Yeah.
Yeah, but like a little more grounded in it, like who he is, slightly less arrogant than when we last saw him in No Way Home. but really, like, Elizabeth Olsen ate up every scene she was in. Like, she was absolutely phenomenal as Scarlet Witch, and like taking it to that next level from where we left off in WandaVision. So that was, I mean, she stole the show. And I loved America Chavez. She was so cute and so sweet. And I actually don't know too much about her character specifically. I feel like they maybe could have done a little bit more with her, but it really was a setup between Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange. Like,
yeah, this is just to, yeah, this is more so to just intro the character, which is for the most part accurate to what the comics were. It's just, fit into this movie instead of a different, plot direction. I do think that character is treated a little bit like a TV role. And I don't mean Marvel TV. I mean, like, it felt a little CW to me, which isn't bad. That's fine. It just, like, it felt a little bit, oh, your camera is going crazy right now. Better. You were glitching out like crazy. Like, it was, like, cutting across diagonally, and it was like you were going into the multiverse is what was happening.
Yes, I was. I can see that. So that was crazy.
But yeah, I do think it, America in this movie, as much as this movie doesn't fit into the overall tone of the MCU, kind of, like, because it feels so Raimi, that role felt a little bit out of this movie as well, which is, A, that can happen with just productions in general. B, it kind of works for this because she is a multiversal character, so maybe she doesn't have to feel like, there's workarounds to that, but it felt a little, not saccharine, but like there was just something that kind of felt like it wasn't quite in the same world to me. But other than that, I liked the character introduction for her. So I'm excited to see where that moves forward with as they get like Young Avengers to come together. Presumably we, have all that track laid down. So, but then there's also, the Danny Elfman of it all, which is like, he goes as far as Raimi goes into Raimiism, Danny Elfman is going as Elfman as possible with the score in this movie. And he never quite hits like a proper theme that's like a big recognizable moment, like Batman or Spider-Man or whatever. But like he does go really hard into the weird stuff, which like he's pulling a lot more from the Oingo Boingo years than his composing years, which was like super fun because like it'll be like a full symphonic orchestral moment, and then it'll just be like screeching guitar. Like, and it was really like, that's this movie to me, where it's just like, overall, all of these pieces came together to just make something weird and fun. And sometimes that's fine. Like, sometimes the MCU needs that because it's been very serious, even with No Way Home, which has those fun things that happen with it, and bringing those different universes together. Tom Holland's Peter still goes through something real hard in that, and as much as we get a little bit of that with Wanda, it is still a little more like played campy. Because I think if they went too hard, yeah, and like we've seen it in WandaVision, we've seen it building from her introduction early on. Like there are things in this that specifically reference her parents' apartment and stuff when she was a kid. So yeah, I do think they came together to just make something more fun as opposed to make something that is not even just heavy, but like really like set in the MCU base. So, it is what it is. I don't think it's the best of the MCU, but I don't think it's the worst by any means either.
Together a lot of what they're doing in the TV space though. Like obviously like directly with the continuation from WandaVision, but also in like the zombie aspect and like that what if is canon, and like a lot of the things they like kind of tested out in what if we now kind of saw on the big screen, which actually I would say even, I said has like more of a TV time, gave it more of that comic book feel. We
Oh
haven't
yeah.
really seen those elements, so I like that for in terms of like the tonal shift, especially like later in the film during like the final conflict and how that kind of worked out. Or even in the opening and he's fighting a giant monster coming down the street, and those elements gave it more of that comic book feel than everything is very grounded in reality and to your point very serious. So it
Yeah.
did, like, it lent itself to being fun and also scary. Like, let's be real, it was a little scary when I know that was like, like oil from the robots coming down her face, but like she's like the girl from The Ring, like ready to climb out of the freaking well.
So we'll
Like, what?
let's do like two more quick things or quick moments, and then we'll get into like the spoiler stuff and get further into that. But yeah, the thing that I said in my review last night is like that is just on Letterboxd. I think that this movie, similarly to how it feels like a Sam Raimi movie, is Sam Raimi's wheelhouse, is like old school comics. So this feels like that, the way that the first Spider-Man movie feels like almost an homage to the first Superman movie with Richard Donner and Christopher Reeve. This feels more in line with those than a modern superhero movie. So it does have that more comic booky feel to it, even though it is, we're 12 years into 14 years into the MCU at this point, basically. Like, what was it, 2008? So yeah, 14 years this month. I think Iron Man was May.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's weird. It's like a weird throwback to a bygone era that was already a throwback to a bygone era. So I think that you have to, as an audience member, make some concessions, that you're gonna get some weird stuff and some stuff that isn't gonna make you happy, and just accept that, like, sometimes it's just a bit, because this is just a extended what if episode rather than fitting through our timeline. So, but with that, now that we're, I'm touching on the things of like what if and whatnot, let's get into spoilers, and let's do the big spoilers of like the cameos, because I think that's what most people were getting very, very hyped on with the trailers. They teased, Professor X with Patrick Stewart's voice and whatnot. And then there was a TV spot, not a full trailer, but a TV spot that had him coming out. You don't see him in it. You just see his hand resting on it, but you see the yellow floating wheelchair that is from the X-Men animated series. You do see Peggy Carter's shield in the TV spot as well. But there was more than that as well. So yeah, quickly done away with. We got Reed Richards, John Krasinski, the fan casting that was going on for that, which isn't the first time that that's happened, but some people are a little bit upset about that on the internet, but it's the internet. They're going to get mad about stuff.
I mean, I thought he did a great job in his 5 minutes on screen.
It's also not our Reed Richards yet. So I think people may be
that's a good loophole.
Yeah, and so
you can do whatever you want when you're in a different universe.
Right, and I think he's going to have plenty of time to make that role more his own, as opposed to, like, this is a cameo where, he just needs to play the part that's written as opposed to encompassing something. And that's, it is what it is. But we got that. We got Black Bolt we got Anson Mount as Black Bolt, which is, who could have guessed that Inhumans would have actually come back? But that does tease that, like, in theory, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could come through somehow. Yeah. But within about 5 minutes, they're all dead.
That's a bold choice. It's like Feige went, Sam, you do you, boo. Because I mean, cutting Peggy Carter in half with the shield, like, come on now. That is never something I thought I would ever see.
It
That level of like
it was bold.
craziness.
It was
It
bold.
was it was bold. It was like Jupiter entering Aries bold if we're talking horoscopes. Like, oh my God.
So
I was a little like, whoa.
yeah, I went to a 10:15 screening last night, and I saw some reactions on the Twitter feed before I went into my screening. And there were specific people who are very attached to Peggy Carter who were very mad when they came out of the movie. And so as soon as that as soon as that happened in the movie, I was like, "Oh, I know the moment that they said no." The moment that they said I'm out on this movie. But yeah, that's the thing, is it is an episode of What If. It's I understand the feeling of seeing these characters in real life for the first time and then they're ousted real quickly like that. But like, we saw that in What If. We saw characters die in What If. So
we saw Deadpool.
Yeah.
That was a very less comical like scene from Deadpool when he has like an X-Force jumps out of the helicopter. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
Big hype on putting together the team.
Yeah, except brought even further because it is all these characters that we've at least seen some part of, if not like references to very specific things. Like the Professor X thing it's Patrick Stewart from the X-Men movies, but he's in the chair from X-Men the Animated Series, and the theme song actually comes through from the animated series in the score. And so it's just like it builds up a very, very, very hype moment for it to be ripped away. So I do understand that might upset people, but it is like,
I did have a hard time seeing Professor X die again. Like
oddly enough, think about this for a second. So in Star Trek, The Next Generation, they changed the shirt colors for the different ranks, and he is wearing a red shirt. So now he has to Sean Bean it every time. He has to just be gone every time.
There are rules. There are rules.
Yeah. But yeah.
But again, bold choices were made.
Yeah, and some of those, as soon as the Black Bolt death happened, I was like,
that was crazy.
They're all gone. They're all gonna go now. And just to see him,
you can take a Black Bolt like that. Like, come on.
Well, and then not even just that. It's just the way that they did it. Like, they put in the terror of having his mouth just gone. The fact that they linger on that, like, oh no, my mouth is gone moment, like, that's the terror for him. And then he just, like, makes a shocked sound, and his entire head caves in. It is wild. Like, that is more gruesome than anything we've seen in the MCU as far as like, you know, non-Deadite style characters. So yeah, it was, that whole sequence is nuts. And seeing it in 3D, whew, that was nuts.
In the Omni Theater, I was in the room.
Yeah. It was, speaking of the 3D thing, I'm very annoyed at something. I specifically went to a 3D showing of this movie so that I could see the new Avatar trailer in 3D, and they didn't have the Avatar trailer.
Of course.
Pissed. Because I don't prefer 3D movies by any means. Had a headache after I got out of the movie because of it. But yeah, like, it's the stuff that happens in this movie is kind of wild, but like, it's also there's messy stuff with cool moments mixed in. Like, the plot in this movie is messy, so it's just like,
because it is. It could have been over in like 2 seconds if America just like was like, here, now you can see her, and like, whoa, who is this lady? That would have been the end of the movie.
You're right. And not even that, it's just like, we're sort of Deus Ex Machina in it. We're like, we're just, it's just going when we start the movie. There's not a lot of introduction.
It felt almost like I missed something. Like I came in late.
Yeah,
Like a little
like
bit?
there was a whole scene that got cut out or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I that is just kind of what they're going for with this. They started with an alternate universe thing, and so that's where we're going from there. I think expectations of this movie were a little bit thrown off by the marketing because they made it seem like there was an evil Doctor Strange, but they set it up more so that like there was going to be an evil Doctor Strange big bad that like was bigger than Wanda as the villain in this movie. Especially with the like the zombie Strange stuff. Like
Oh, that was great though.
that was it was great. It was definitely a subversion of expectation because I think everyone was in the boat of like, oh, that's the one. The zombie one is gonna be the big bad of the movie,
Hmm.
and then it was just like, oh, no, he just goes into his brain. That's it is what it is. But like the visuals of that were super cool. Like the dead limbs being the cape as he
Hmm.
like flew off. That was very 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 cool.
And also very Deadite when they started like coming out and like all their faces and like pulling and just the hands, the pulling at you hands thing is also a very Raimi horror
Yeah.
movie thing.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about the in the Evil Dead when Ash just gets punched by like 13 skeleton hands all at the same time.
Hmm.
Um
Hmm.
but yeah, like the even Wanda, like the scene where they're in the tunnel, Wanda is like the witch in the well in Army of
Hmm.
Darkness. Like that is a full on just she's become a Raimi creature at that point. She's not
Hmm.
really Wanda anymore. And it's kind of wild cuz to see that kind of tone, like there were like bits and pieces of Raimiisms in like the first Spider-Man movie is very Raimi, but like this is 80 times that. So we
Hmm.
just get a whole lot of that. But yeah, I am glad that they teased that with Wanda coming to doing the Doc Ock and like
Hmm.
taking herself out. We do have the other Wanda still has powers. So like
Hmm.
because at first I was like, oh, they're gonna leave her behind in this like nexus point, and then she's just like, nope, float off. So we'll still
See?
it's setting up that Wanda will find Vision. Like
Hmm.
that is I think where the future for those characters go now. So yeah.
Well, that and like, I also don't believe if you don't see a body, no one's dead.
Even if you see a body, it's
Yeah,
comics.
I'm right, right? Although I did like, she had a mission. She was laser focused. I'm gonna get my kids back, and that she acknowledges she has
Give
all
me
the
back my
power to take,
son.
right. She had all the power to take over the multiverse, and she's like, I'm choosing not to. Like bold moves, and I like that they have elevated the Scarlet Witch into her rightful place as being one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe.
Like it is a little disappointing that it's like now we're gonna be back with just Wanda and not a Scarlet Witch Wanda,
Mm-hmm.
where the confrontation isn't bigger. Like being in a Doctor
Mm-hmm.
Strange movie, like it's a little smaller of a scope. Whereas like, is this their House of M? Is this as
Mm-hmm.
big as it gets for the Scarlet Witch in the MCU as far as like detrimental change where it's just like one and done? Because that is something that would be fascinating is having her actually be like a much bigger threat than the multiverse, but in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would be cool to just see it a little bit bigger.
This is almost like a transitional movie, and we're going to see the repercussions of it in
Right.
future films. Like, because they've established that incursions happen, you can destroy whole universes, you know, whatever you do can kind of change the fabric of time. We've also seen that with Loki, but like we haven't really seen the implications. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's all setting up for things to kind of unravel. We saw a little bit in No Way Home, but it's all these like little pieces, and I feel like we just haven't seen the consequences yet.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I'm sure that's I don't know if they'll dive into it with, whatever the next Doctor Strange story is because they did set up
Mm-hmm.
without a casting announcement that Charlize Theron is playing Clea, the Sorcerer Supreme of the Dark Dimension. So that will be a grander scope. That will be more, you know. We saw the same visual when she cuts open. I just heard a very loud bang out my window. That's disconcerting. But yeah, there's we see her kind of the way that that America punches through the multiverse. We see her cut through the dimension and show the same visuals that they used for the Dark Dimension in the first Doctor Strange with Dormammu and stuff. It's that same sort of like purpley kind of glow that had. So we'll definitely see more like weird Dark Dimension stuff with Doctor Strange. I don't know what that means for his association with Wanda going forward, but you know, we'll have to wait and see on that, I guess. But I have to assume that they're setting up these multi-dimensional, multiversal versions of characters that can take over the mantle, so that when they do Secret War, presumably, they'll just pull them in. So like that, I would assume that that's how Miles comes over for Spider-Man, because that is, you know, how it happened in the comics. Like, but that's, you know, the replacement mantle versions of these characters. It's going to be much easier to just say it's that universe's version and they've come over, as opposed to having to re-up an origin for the same title character. So, yeah.
Yeah. I hope they bring her back, though, especially if they end up going into like a big, what's going to be like the, you know, the next like key team up big film.
I think it's Secret War. I really do. Like, they're doing Secret Invasion, but that is a TV show. So I think that that's going to be an event, but a limited event, as opposed to like an Avengers movie, because they supposedly don't have an Avengers movie lined up right now, even though they just said they have the MCU planned out till 2032. So, you know, we're getting to a place where there's obviously another Avengers movie down the line. I would assume it has to be Secret War. That is the next biggest one, and it's where they're kind of teasing towards with the multiverse stuff. Gotta do the Tom Brevoort thing and take the two pizzas, smush them together, and the toppings mix, and some of them fall off. That's how it works.
I feel like, you know, maybe if this movie came out around Halloween time, it would have like a little more, it would be a little more like right for the season. But I feel like as our first like big Marvel movie of the year, it's interesting. I mean, I like it. I'm gothy in my soul. So like, and you give me anything with witchcraft and I'm like 100% on board. And you know what? I don't know. I can't hate on her. Like, I love Scarlet Witch. I usually see her point. She's had like a lot of shit. She's been through unnecessarily most of the time a lot of shit, and everyone seems to counter out. And she's like literally one of the most powerful beings in the universe. So,
oh yeah, I mean, that's.
I hope she comes back. I hope they. Obviously not want it, but like I hope that they bring her.
The titular version of Wanda. You mean they hope you bring her back? Yeah. I
want my own temple.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, Bruce Campbell is in this movie.
Of course.
Doing another bit part for Sam Raimi, his good pal. I like it. I like the stupidity of it. But this is another one of those he's in the movie, but he also is the final post-credit scene in this. And he very specifically references Evil Dead with this. He is he's beating himself up thanks to a 3-month spell from Doctor Strange. And he the beating himself up thing is already a reference to Evil Dead, but on top of that, he is also holding his hand back from attacking himself, and it is very much in reference to a moment. So I mean,
the Darkhold home could be the Necronomicon. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah, it's an evil book. So yeah, that's the thing is I think the people who aren't going to like this movie for the most part are just not going to be able to vibe with the tone. Like, because the story is a little bit messy, but it has very, very fun things going on in it. And there's a lot of like campy Raimi stuff. And like I said before, if you're okay with that, you're gonna be cool with this movie. I don't think anyone is gonna rank this movie as like number one in their MCU. It's not that.
No, it's not. And it wasn't aiming for that either.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that people are going to come out of this, if they dislike it, realizing that they're starting to give people a little more voice when they're making these movies. And it kind of all just started with the fact that, like, in the trailers, we now see directed by, or like a Sam Raimi film or directed by Sam Raimi kind of credit. And we also see a Kevin Feige production. It's not just a Marvel Studios production anymore. The personalities are getting the allowance to stamp the movies more. Like, Taika did it, but the marketing didn't act that way. Outside of just like seeing parts of the movie.
But I feel like Taika's style is more in the humor and that like very New Zealand kind of subtle. Like, I think it's a little bit different than like Raimi's also very visual in terms of like very B horror and like what we talked about, the old school comic book elements. So I think this was even more of a risk.
Oh yeah, although, for sure.
Tangent. I really hope they renew Our Flag Means Death, but that's sidebar.
Yeah.
I hope that Taika Waititi's not too busy with the Marvel Universe so he can come back and be Blackbeard. But anyway.
Well, he's also, I think, still attached to the Akira live action movie, so we'll see. He's got a lot on his plate. But yeah, I'm coming out of this movie as like, this is a very solid middle of the road MCU movie. It's fun. I'm going to probably rewatch it around Halloween. Like, that's the thing is I just rewatched Doctor Strange for the first time in like 3 years because I don't care that much about that movie as competent as it is. But like, this movie feels more like a Scary Movie Night movie. And that's, that has more of a place to me than watching most of the MCU movies over at this point, because I've seen a lot of the early ones so many times that I don't really have to watch them anymore. I don't really feel like I have to sit through the entirety of like Infinity War and Endgame over and over because like they were impactful enough on the first times. And so like, this just seems like a fun, rewatchable movie because it is like, you can turn your brain off a little bit. And sometimes the MCU needs that. So, yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
I liked it. It was good. But yeah, Omni Theater. Whoa!
Yeah, you're only supposed to watch, like, documentaries about Antarctica there. That's the only thing that's for.
Yeah. Stay in the rainforest, like, not the multiverse. But anyway.
Yeah.
It was collectively an experience.
Sure was. That guy coughing next to me. Ugh. That'll do it for this episode. We have tons of trailer reactions on the channel that I've been doing lately. So you can check those out. We got plenty more of the podcast coming up. I do have an episode of Moon Knight. This came out a little out of order. There was a scheduling snafu, but there is a Moon Knight episode coming up next week as well. So there's plenty of stuff to check out on the channel. Like the videos, subscribe here. If you're into the audio version, subscribe on a podcast service. It gets it to you quicker. You don't have to search for us. It's easier that way. But Reena, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, happy to do it anytime.
You will be back for Thor: Love and Thunder. I will put that out there now. That is how it's set up right now for your guest stuff coming up. So thanks again, and until next time, bye.